Well, thank you everyone for your patience while we work through the technology. Looks like everything is working fine now. Thank you for your help with that, Rachel and Andrew and Jamie. So I'd like to call the meeting to order, our July 12th, 14 Mile Watershed Alliance meeting. Our confirming the Zoom setup, we're all set to go. Again, thank you for that. So roll call, starting from my right. Ready? Down Easted.
Barb Perez. Karen Canota.
So we're going to go to announcements, and then I'm going to bring Scott forward, Scott Provost forward, because he's got another meeting and he's got some things to share with us. So first, under announcements, some of you have seen an email from me about Pearl, which is a technology being developed by Northwestern University. And I've spoken with them. Scott Provost has also spoken with them. And it is, let's say that it's early stage technology, but it's for phosphorus removal using a membrane that would capture the phosphorus. So not sure about applicability or scalability for our situation, but just like denitrification, it's something worth looking at. So anyway, that meeting is going to occur this Wednesday, the 14th at 3 o'clock. Anyone is welcome to join in that. I forwarded a Zoom that was set up by Stephanie at Northwestern, so take a look at that and join us if you'd like to. That's 3 o'clock on Wednesday, the 14th. Then the second thing I would add as an announcement, I think also you will have seen an email. I've been working with Thomas Houlihan, the executive director of Wisconsin Potato Vegetable Growers, and he had suggested that they would like to do a farm tour and invite us to the tour so that we can better understand what some of the more progressive farmers are doing and what technology they're using. So I'm happy to say that we've been given some dates. I've heard back from many of you, and it looks like the preferred date will be the 20th of July. And I didn't write down the time, so I'm not going to say the time, just look at the email, but also because I've got that confirmation, I'll just wait to hear back from Thomas so that we understand the logistics of it, and then I'll send out a confirming email to all of you with the exact time and where to meet. That's all I have for announcements. Anyone else have something they'd like to share? Okay, with that, then let's move forward. Scott Provost is with us via Zoom, and so I've asked Scott to give us an update on some of the things that he's doing as our advisor. So, Scott?
All right, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, cool. Thanks for sending me that link, Rachel. So a couple of things going on. Aaron Grossman got the permit back from the Army Corps of Engineers last week to do those ditch plugs out there on Owens Rock. So we will be installing the wells in the next couple of weeks out there. We had to wait to make sure we were going to get the permit before we went and spent the money. But we just got that last week, so we're good to go. I was out there with Aaron Thursday as a follow-up on that, and just to go over everything one last time, and did quite a few borings out there, and if what I'm seeing is consistent throughout that area, we'll definitely be able to utilize that organic sediment. I cored down, and it varied from 2 to 3.5 feet of thick organics on top of what we call a mineral soil, which is basically stuff that was laid down by the glacier or the outwash from the glacier. So I had sediment from whenever that was, 8 to 10,000 years ago. Nobody was sitting on Owens Rock watching when it happened, or at least recording it anyway. So all the way to the surface, and it's just rich organic material that should work fairly well for this denitrification project. So that was exciting. And the difference between the bottom of the organic layer and the current water table is only 9 inches. So there's no doubt in my mind that we're going to get some years it's going to utilize a lot of that organic layer. Some years it might just use a little bit on the bottom, but nonetheless, we're definitely going to be able to saturate some of that organic layer to accomplish our goals, or to see if it is a, you know, to test the theory here on this in a large scale situation. And I did talk with Doc McGinley a little bit about it as well. So, you know, we're gonna get some equipment from him, and I think they're gonna. I don't know if he's gonna take some more interest in this later, but because these wells are on state property, we might keep them in for some time later on if the university decides to do some follow up after this study runs. So we'll see where it goes from here, but we'll be moving pretty quick now. When we do go out there to install the wells, we'll definitely include you or let you guys know when that's happening. But we're going to get out there pretty quick, so I want to get at least 2 rounds of sampling in as background or ambient sampling before they actually plug the ditches. So there's the news on the denitrification project. Don also asked me to get the latest results summarized from all the monitoring that's been done out there. We'll have that ready for the lakes meeting, and I believe it's August 7th, right, Don?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Yeah, and then we'll present that, what we found, where we're at, so people know why this monitoring is going on, what it showed us, and then show how we're going to be using that. Basically how the county will be using it. One thing I've picked up on or noticed is working with Anna James on the producer-led watershed down there in Big Roger Creek to the south. There's data available, but it's all over the place. We don't have a good set of water quality data like you do at the 14 Mile Creek. So the data you got, we can actually use a lot. It was going to be perfect for what we need to do for the implementation of the 9 key element plan. So if it wasn't for that monitoring that was going on for the last couple of years, we wouldn't be able to do that. So I wish we had these data, or a set of data similar to this that we down in Big Roger Creek. I know Anna does too. She went through everything trying to find stuff, and it's all over the place. So that's just another plus for doing the monitoring that you guys done out there. And then it also does help us determine what our nitrogen budget and phosphorus budget is going into, and how that varies over time. You know, just doing 1 year data is okay, but you're only getting the weather conditions of that year. You're not getting that full range of how things actually move in the resource. So the extended timeline on the date on all the sampling it's beneficial. This isn't just sampling just because that's what government people do. There's a reason behind it. The other thing was the hell was the other thing? Oh, there was the interest with that whole Pearl thing, and I didn't know anything about it. So I reached out to the developers at Notre Dame and talked with the lead research there, Dr. something Dravid, and then the PhD student Stephanie, and then 2 other I don't know if they're postdocs or what, working on this project. And the science looks pretty good. I also had Pat Oldenburg sit in from an engineering standpoint just to make sure, because it was kind of interesting. He geeks out about technical stuff, and he knows the engineering really well. So he sat in it as well. We had about an hour discussion. The science works, looks like it would work, but there's no way they have anything set up that they could put into the lake or do at this time. They have the science behind it, but to do the scale would need some engineering. We're looking at a lot of engineering, and it'd be a pilot project because they have not tested it on large scale. But they've used water from large scale projects, and yeah, it works. But there's also a lot of logistics that would have to be figured out beforehand, like when this apparatus would take water in and treat it to remove the phosphorus. That discharge would have to go someplace, hopefully to the land or some farm fields where that phosphorus is reemployed. reapplied to the ground elevation or to the ground. And it would also, there's different ways how you could be used. Do we pump the water out of the bottom of the lake when it's stratified in the summertime where that phosphorus is most concentrated, and operate it during the warmer months and shut her down over the year? Or, do you put it out there in the middle floating of the lake? It's not going to work with all the boat activity, and the phosphorus is going to be lower at the surface because it's that this unit can only take out the phosphate ion. So that means if it's tied up in algae or something like that, it's not going to work. It's not going to take it out. But if you draw it from the bottom in the summertime, it will remove that phosphorus. And then when the lake turns over in the fall, you remove that excess phosphorus that would have been released to the surface. So that's one possible way to employ something like this, but it would take pretty good chunk of change. We don't even have any clue yet how much, but a lot. It wouldn't need a lot of permitting if they did it right, because the water, as long as no discharge went back to the lake or back to the 14 mile, we'd be in good shape. That's obviously the goal here, is to remove that phosphorus laden water. The professor called it phosphorus brine. That's where the discharge would be. And then we also talked about, all right, so phosphorus isn't the big issue on tri-lakes. It's one, something we obviously consider, but, the phosphorus levels on the lake are not all that bad. Nitrogen, again, is the culprit here. And he thinks they might be able to tweak the engineering on their end to maybe possibly capture some forms of nitrogen, which would be really cool if that happened. Then we'd be in business for sure. So I was kind of excited listening to it, and the science behind it's real simple. Just science. It's not complicated stuff. It's just basically using certain things that attract phosphorus and or nitrogen, or some forms of nitrogen. So we're going to be talking again, and I think it's worth pursuing as far as how could we implement it on tri-lakes, or as a novel approach for nutrient removal. But there's no way that can work alone. And the professor will tell you this too. If you don't control the sources, you're just throwing good money after, or bad money after good money, because you got to still control the sources so you eventually get ahead of this thing, right? Because you're flushing phosphorus downstream every year. But we want to bail, and you got new phosphorus coming in from shorelines and from the watershed. You got to make sure that the sources are reduced enough that you get a net gain or net loss to actually make a difference. So it would definitely have to correspond with the best management practices and things that you see the county will be employing up there in the watershed. So it's got possibilities, or we'd be interested in looking at how they can engineer it to this large of a scale. And it might be one tool, but it's not a panacea, and he'll tell you the same thing. So keep that in mind. It was been pretty busy the last couple of weeks up there with the other stuff going on too, but a lot starting to come together real quick, folks. And so I look forward to August 7th that we can give that presentation and kind of summarize this to the constituents up there. And that's about it. That's all I got for you. If you got some questions quick, we can go through them, and I don't want to take away from your meeting, though.
Oh, okay, Scott, I appreciate that update. That's very informative. And I'm not sure who else is going to be on that call on Wednesday when I about this Pearl concept, but I wondered if you had any guidance for me, because really you guys have talked in some level of detail that I'm unfamiliar with, I'm sure. But what would you suggest might be a next step with these guys. It sounds like we should keep a relationship going. What would you suggest would be, I guess, a good result for my conversation?
Yeah, I think it'd be a good question. I think one of the first questions would be is, okay, we kind of interested in science. We think, we understand it. It looks like it might work. How are you going to implement it on the lakes? What's it going to take? That's where they'll have to engineer something up. They're gonna need some money to do that. I would try to figure out what a price tag would be for a diagnostic or diagnostic feasibility study type of thing. And if we might be able to fund that through a planning grant, I would imagine, and just to remind you, the planning grant proposal deadlines are September 2nd. So if you do want to do something, get something working for a grant, for next year's grant, then at least get a proposal in, simple 1 page on that worksheet in by September 2nd. And if you don't decide to go forward with it, big deal, just cancel it out. And don't submit the final grant application by November 11th. But I would definitely, November 1. But I would definitely prod that, find out what's it going to take, and then to figure out, 1, how you're going to implement this, and 2, the maintenance and how we're going to fund it. That's what a diagnostic feasibility study would do. And the cost of that, I would have them do that, Don, because they're the one, it's their science, it's their technology, and they got their engineering school. So you tell us, if you need money to do that, then we can talk about getting a grant for a diagnostic feasibility study.
So, Scott, would the approach be somewhat similar to what we did with the denitrification project that we're?
Oh, no. This is, these guys are doing like real science and engineering. This would,
Any grant?
oh, yeah, well, the DNITE project is just something we're paying for. It's not a grant. DNR is doing 100% of the cost on that. But if you wanted, I think what this is, I'm assuming they would need up to 50 grand or so just to write the diagnostic feasibility study, somewhere around there, or even more. So the grant would cover how you're going to do this and give us a plan. So then you can go to implementation, and then we can come back with a big money grant, up to 250K on that.
So I guess my ask of them would be put together some kind of a concept that we could then use in requesting, right?
Yeah. I would first ask them, we're going to need a diagnostic. Can you give us a diagnostic feasibility study? How are you going to apply that? How would you apply this? And if they say, well, that's going to cost money, then say, okay, great. We do have an option to how much money first. You want to know the price tag. Secondly, that would be eligible for a planning grant. We can either go a lake planning grant, or we can go through a 319 because you guys got that 9 kilobit plan out there. So you got other funds that you're eligible for other funds now.
Anyone else with a question for Scott?
Rachel here, I do have a quick question. Out of curiosity, do you remember from their trials, what's the capacity of the current mechanism? How much water?
Oh, it was all super small scale. It's all laboratory scale. So, yeah, I mean, we're talking like beaker size, or even a little larger than that, carboy size maybe. Yeah, but you could easily employ this, make it a much bigger system because it's cheap to build. Some of that stuff, all it is basically is sponges made out of cellulose, and they put they coat it with this iron and carbon rich resin. And then by controlling the pH, that's what binds to the phosphate ion, and everything else passes through. So the phosphate ion, it's kind of like a water softener, the phosphate, but I guess it is ion exchange, but the phosphorus ion would go off one way and all your water and everything else would go out another, would go back to the 14 mile, which would require wastewater permit, but in some monitoring there, but that's minor. That's why Rachel, that's why they would have to scale this up and figure out how big this would a diagnostic feasibility study be. And, they don't have to have the goal of removing all the phosphorus out. That's not going to happen, but what if they remove it? Is it worth running a system like this, building a system and running a system like this if it removes 15% of the phosphorus or 20% of the phosphorus? I mean, think of it that way. It's one tool to eliminate some of the phosphorus. Did that help, Rachel, or did I just muck it up more?
No, very helpful. Thanks, Scott.
And we could always just sick this on Anna because she doesn't have enough to do anyway.
Anything more for Scott?
I have a question. So this has never been used anywhere at any large scale whatsoever, right?
Not that I got from him. He was talking about the Chicago Metropolitan Sewerage District doing some work there, but I didn't follow everything he was saying. Yeah, but bottom line is no. I don't think anything to this scale has ever been done before, this technology. But I'll tell you what, if it does work, I was thinking about it is like, you could easily, this phosphorus brine could easily be sold to a co-op or anything else because it's going to be super rich in phosphorus, and it could be land spread once we know the concentration of it, and you could turn around that and give it to the farmers upstream. Because once you get that phosphorus on that soil, it's highly unlikely it's going to erode away or it's going to leach into the water and go away.
Scott, has your new employee gotten through the HR hurdles and come on board now?
Yes, he is. He's not on today because he's getting ready for the conference call that we got coming up here shortly. But yeah, he was on board for a week, went through all the HR stuff, and then he had a family vacation plan with his folks. They went out back to their hometown in Maine, and he had that plan before he got hired. So, of course, he went and did that. But he's back now. We'll be starting up some plant surveys here quick and sampling and showing them the field stuff. He comes with us with a great resume for aquatic plant management. So he's learning the watershed stuff, but I'm really confident in his aquatic plant management abilities.
Right.
And just like any other employee, he's way younger than me. So he'll be around a while.
Thank you, Scott. Very informative.
If you don't mind, I'll hang on for a while and just listen in, and then I'll just tune out when I got to jump on that other Zoom meeting. If that's all right.
All right. Item 6. I'm sorry. I jumped right past that. I apologize. So, have you all had a chance to review the minutes from the last meeting?
To approve as presented. Second.
All in favor? Any discussion? Well, before that, any discussion, any changes? All in favor? Aye. Aye. All right, now let's go to item 6. And so Rachel is going to facilitate our discussion of the results of our discussion at the last meeting when Eric Olson led us on a talking about our organization and or what Eric calls is, Rachel, thank you for your willingness to do this last month.
All right. So everyone should have one of these packets. So what this is here is just the thing that I wrote up based on what we all collected last time when we were together. All of those little bullets, those, and then I separated them into the 4 categories that Eric supplied to us via that lovely pyramid that we are all now very familiar with. So, as a quick review, this pyramid is this kind of holistic image of what a successful organization needs, right? You have a base of membership, that's what's gonna, keep that fire fueled, right? And then moving up the pyramid, you have one half being organizational growth, that's kind of your internal development, working on everyone's skills who are kind of the leaders of that group, that kind of leadership aspect. And then also relationship building, so building those partnerships with other organizations to build your pool of various resources. And then lastly, at the very top, we have our programs, right? And so, the 14 Mile obviously has all of these things already, right? We're already doing all of this. But there's always room for improvement, right? And so membership being the biggest base, the thing that you really need to keep the fuel going, we're gonna start there, but we're gonna move through all of them today. As it's true that all of these can be worked on simultaneously. And, so what we're gonna do is spend about 20 minutes on each item. So we'll kind of spend that time, we'll look at these key points that you can see under each header. So we'll start with to grow membership. I'll start the clock on 20 minutes, and we'll just kind of start having a discussion. What we're gonna start with is whatever kind of stands out to you folks. So as you read through in the red, you'll see kind of some prompting questions. Those are questions that I developed and threw in there to kind of spark thought. And whichever bullet, really hits you in a way that you think, okay, wow, we can really tackle this. I have some ideas on this. We'll start there, and we'll kind of move around the bullets that way. Now, I'll start recording all of our thoughts here. And then as we go through each section, our goals today are going to be to develop goals. So we're going to try to create 3 goals per component on our pyramid. And then for each of those goals, we're going to try to develop a couple of action items to get those going. And so what Anna's going to help me with over here is filling out a chart. So that will be sent out to everyone afterwards. Now, like I said, we're going to do 20 minutes on each one just to make sure we're moving through. Now, if we don't get through everything, if we only get one goal or a couple action items per thing, that's okay. Then we'll just plan to maybe do a Zoom in a week or so to kind of button things up and add our last details. All right? Okay, any questions before we dive in? Okay. I'll go ahead and start our clock here. All right, so number 1 would be membership, okay? So as you can see, we've got several little bullets there. Get upstream into the watershed, get the name brand out there, address seasonality, that transience that we experience in the lakes area, age gaps between the older and the younger folks, and then engaging people over long distance, also adding to that transient. Any of those that really jump out at you and you think, so what have we been doing so far with getting our name brand out there?
Well,
Logo, we've got the farmer's market, and media. So yeah, we're doing a lot there, right? There's a lot going on.
we're getting a website,
Beautiful, by the way, I was on it earlier today. And so expanding social media into other platforms. How do we feel about them? There are others, there's also Twitter.
I use.
I feel ignorant about
Well, I have two 30-something. I don't know if you use. I think it's the, that.
I would also second that. I would say your best bet is to go between Twitter and Instagram. I will say the agricultural community leans towards Twitter. I know a lot of farmers do utilize that. Well, a little younger usually. But then Instagram, definitely the youth population uses it very heavily. My assumption would be mostly because it's picture heavy. And, you know, like we say, a picture says 1,000 words. It carries a lot more than sitting there and reading. With our social media world and wanting everything right there, right now, you know, our kids don't really like to sit there and read. So if you can tell a story with pictures, that's a good option. But now, what do we need? If you're gonna have an Instagram, what do you need to have that? Good phone, yeah.
A good cell phone with a good camera. I'm actually working on that.
Is a mobile app, right? You can't do it from a computer. It has to be uploaded via phone. Well.
That's content. You guys. I'm still kind of monopolizing.
We need to develop our stores up there and them in all of our. A lot of programs going.
And, locally, we're beginning to gain, I think, if I remember correctly, 500 members, in Tri-Lakes, and my guess is maybe we've got some distance. Sometimes I think we're actually doing like that, and even things I hear from Anna, Provost, about have a reputation or not pointing. And so we've made a little action there, but I really think we have a long way within our own.
I don't know how you capture.
Well, I like that. Let's kind of
Yeah.
sit on that for a minute. So on the transient community, we think of places that those folks love to go. Where do they always seek out when they come into?
Crystals, for sure.
Is that like a bar and grill?
No,
It's the gas station.
Right.
Okay.
It's right across.
Radio.
Yeah, so it's like a grocery store, it's everything.
The general store.
It's a general store, yeah, it's got everything.
Can't find it there, you can't. You need it.
How do I spell Crystals?
P-R-I-T-C-L.
Why?
No, I is in.
Yeah. Right, and then I'm guessing they go to restaurants. The lodge, probably. Arrowhead is with golf. Lake has its own well, so there's a little. But if you know of any.
We have places where we know these folks like to frequent, and we know that when they come into town, the last thing on their mind probably is gonna be probably coming to town because they wanna relax, get away from work, let the kids burn off some steam, and maybe have a couple beers, right? That's what a lot of people are doing. So we have to think of a way to make it almost effortless for them to do a little bit more.
Various groups, expectations. The year-round and the transient group, or the people who've been long enough term to see all different take on.
Having lived it, like, we can, and I think about my own experience, and probably when I come for a weekend, as you said, Rachel, for an issue, but I would pay more attention when I was in my home and I received email or some other communication. Ever would when I came and my recreation. You could get my attention during the week, but so maybe that means something. And I think I guess I'm old school, but I believe that hard copy mailings really have the that for the really for that purpose us a and a much more human, whatever that's worth.
Idea at the,
A general survey.
Even a hand count.
No, because I've never been to State of the Lakes. Can you explain to me a little bit more about how that would work?
it would just be one of the letters and, you know, you're using Instagram or email, you know, what's happening, you know.
We attended about doing surveys of Adams County Lake, and they talked about getting that information from talking more about at our own state of the, and the show of hands would, you don't necessarily need to come, but I think you'd get an idea of what's most.
Concentrate our efforts.
Show of hands is another good one. Another thought I had is every weekend, you set up something at the end and write a big question on it, and then have people, put an X. As people come by, be like, would you guys mind helping us out? We're trying to reach our neighbors. Do you enjoy newsletters? Yes, no. So on mailings, so we mentioned that's something that a couple of times now I've heard that in our meetings, that we really would like to do more of that, but it does come down to the matter of cost, right? So I know Scott has mentioned some for those mailings. Is that something that we would like to pursue? Or I think it was Eric also that mentioned.
Packers did it a few years ago. $1,000 DNR grant. So that's one avenue. The other avenue is, what about that catalyst grant? We'll find out about that. It or not, but part of that was to just, if you will, professionalize our image, hire somebody to. The other part of that, there are other grants out there, as a matter of fact. A community, and that would also have a the hard copy mailing. So there are a number of possibilities. One of those three or other.
I'm definitely seeing the mailings coming as a major goal. That one down then. So as for language, we'll just develop a mechanism for we're coming down to about 6 minutes left. So in this one, let's try to get 1 to 2 action items on here. So, develop this mechanism, we're gonna need the grant funds, right? The action item number 1, I would say, would be and pacing through the grants I've applied for, but well, grant opportunity. Okay. Other things that we'll need to do for that is we have the mailings ready to rock and created, right? So what things right now would you send out?
What you're asking?
Yeah, so like, do we have products right now that you would like to mail regularly?
I don't think we have that. And I think that's where we need it. And I think we've done some really, and, I think we've done a lot. I think that, if given term to really, I guess, I don't mean that as an, worked hard and it was a lot of effort and we've gained.
I think Karen's did a great job. In our out there, so
And we certainly have a sticker, right? We have the wonderful look of, fertilizer. Yes, the entire booth.
Right.
In terms of mailing, we were talking about a newsletter.
A newsletter, and I would Wisconsin wet, obviously, and, all of us would like to collectively, could work, and, as Jerry said, at professional level, like that, and there are people just, but they've used our jobs easier. All scrambling, we're working hard. And make it.
Scott, have you tell us what Packers has done? They're a professional, or how have they gotten the word out as far as?
We had an internal newsletter, and I was gonna, thanks Carson, I was gonna add that our biggest issue was, basically have one guy doing it, and he ran out of content. So content is really the thing, you gotta start stockpiling content. Have what we did, but, you know, not like, around the lakes initially, and then finding the content when one guy was doing it, you know, it all fell on him, where, you know, there's plenty of content out there. I mean, you've got some projects out there, you just gotta get that stockpiled and ready, so when you have a newsletter, okay, let's pull this and put that one in. Again, when something specific comes up, as you mentioned, you know, that's a headliner, but then you also gotta have the filler stuff. Have it sustainable.
You know, I went to, with a lot of other lakes. And we were at Green Lake, one of the bigger lakes, and was massive high-end home. They use a professional, obviously they use a group, everything for that. It looks really, you know, nice, and it's safe, lots and lots of money. I just want to make sure we're there at that level. My only concern is, you know, because if we get the grant, do we get the grant every year? You know, those are my questions. Because right now, we're not bringing in money.
Why don't you get one? Content like you.
Scott, do you use all the newsletters? Same basic format? See, if, default template. With that, I think we'd have a lot.
Maybe on action items, develop materials via professional firm, maybe shift file content. That'd be an item.
Yeah, to build on what Scott said, I really like, most sites, and that's almost to the point, almost a magazine, you know, more than a newsletter. I mean, and you can go into a lot of depth on that. To get information.
And then another action item could be Okay, and that's something I can assist with all. Extension offers a really great outreach.
And have you seen the,
It's everything. And the thing that I like about it is, they hire the people in their association, and they're just young people. Like they have been in the business for years and they're a marketing firm. They just kind of go with it, and I love that whole organic way that it seems to work really. I'd like to sit with and just all the things that they do. So one of the things they did is they all the people who lived on the lake, and it was just stories of living on that lake for years.
I lived in Ripon, where, very similar, had a lot of transients. Way Avenue,
Right.
a lot of transients, they, being at the lake, than we are, they've got a real history developed. From the standpoint of wealth, yes, there's a lot of money there. John does at this point, the best way for us to kind of catch up.
I think we have to determine our priorities are.
It could come down the line, right?
Right.
I mean, these are things that we could start doing now, and then, like, as we would get grants.
One of our goals.
Right.
Absolutely. All right, so we're gonna move on to the next one here. We wanna put on Instagram.
Well, can I ask a dumb question?
Yeah, I don't know what it is, but it sounds great.
So my question is, so if we get this Instagram account, how does it get out to people? Podcast it, but go to her, do people have access to it to get? I mean,
It's like YouTube.
Yep, it's like YouTube or Facebook or any other. The nice thing about Instagram is that, frequented a lot more than they do, because it's easily scrollable, because it's all. So if people are scrolling through, you can do this thing, hashtagging. So if you say, hashtag, if someone follows hashtag Wisconsin Lakes, even if they don't subscribe specifically to your Instagram, it will pop up on their feed. And if they happen to see a picture they like, they'll like it, and then it'll automatically suggest, do you want to follow 14 Mile Watershed Alliance, because you like one of their.
Also really brief. My son just does.
Well, the thing on Instagram is, so, gonna stockpile content, that's gonna be one of the action items you're gonna do. Really successful accounts are the ones that, are able to put something. If you have a bunch of stuff stockpiled, and that's really easy to. You don't need a person to do it. Stockpiling content, that's pretty easy, right? That's like go into your photo booth on your computer and just pull all your favorite lake photos. Right? That's a great way to start. Pics with your family, farmer awards, things like that. Those are great examples. All in the one Google folder, one a day, and just kind of start to tell the story of what 14.
I would be the one who in this group. Only because I've used it and it's like phenomenal at it, so I can get. So, and obviously I can. I'm gonna insist that I get. Or you have an incredible.
Yeah.
Those kind of things.
Beautiful.
Bill sales, whatever. All of us can
content, and then maybe Karen, rise,
Right.
up with Instagram.
Question about it, and, I don't use Instagram. Probably, I'm not. I look at, like, when we asked about find it, but 500, property owners, on Eatonwell who are, if you will, role, our watershed, are we looking, yeah, throwing the question out there just to,
Hugely dependent. I mean, that's actually something that could be another goal is developing some
Right.
demographic data.
Yeah, so I was pretty surprised. Even if the younger, those, by the way, those people are inevitably gonna be our, right now. If we can get them early, I think. Exactly.
Mile Watershed.
remember
No,
looking
no.
at the demographic. Average age here.
Higher.
Older demographic, I think that's the average.
Yeah.
And if you think about
But
it,
that's, Jerry, that's
But
probably
that's-
full-time residents,
That's
right?
right,
That's not
yeah.
property owners.
Isn't it
Yeah, to
60%
Karen's point.
seasonal? Yeah, it's
Yeah.
60% seasonal. So it's, and I think it could be higher than that. Yeah, at one point it was half and half. Now with this reselling of all the homes,
I don't mean to belabor it, I'm just,
Maybe for a final goal for now, we could put down out demographic data.
and that, again, it's like, those are good.
The other thing is you're getting the second generation starting to come through with buying, taking over their parents' homes and utilizing their facilities. Or to the point where they don't utilize it as much, so buying them out or utilizing.
All right, so I think we're gonna put a bow on this for now. On to the next one. Next up is organizational growth. This one, some of our bullets, we mentioned more board members on the committee, clarifying goals and vision. And then, Eric mentioned a book called Flock Not Clock by David Cabrera. So I listed this mainly as, kind of an inspiration for maybe some kind of professional opportunities with we'd like to do together, maybe even like a mini book club or something. And a couple of minutes sharing something.
There's no younger, just say we're all retired. Yeah, well.
We're retired.
No, we're retired age. Retirement age, we really need to get that younger. One thing is. We need to be, how, do I have an idea how to do that? But I guess I would put that. I just think.
Is an enthusiasm for something that can be continued.
I mean, that's not much of a goal, but have reached out to find that they're busy. I think that's the challenge. To take time to be involved, find that balance.
That is tough, yeah, because I mean, that's what it is to be really young and
Having a
especially if you own
family.
your own business, yeah.
Right.
It's like, you just go time.
Right.
You know, other things you could think about is your spouse. They possibly be interested in supporting the work of what the spouse does. And that's really, I don't really know how else to send out those lines other than just by word of mouth
Right.
conversations.
Well, is it possible? I don't know, I'm just trying.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, I always leave it.
yeah, that's a, there is a, I attended it a year. How, whatever.
That would be great.
Oh, yeah.
That's a great idea.
That's a great.
I remember, actually Mike from DCA.
Mike Irwin.
That they meet on a regular basis.
Okay. I'm seeing a goal servicing of being in
That's interesting, I think. Of female. Probably the majority. Got that market available, we just have.
Another thing you could do, action. They're looking for you. Wants to be part of a team. What to do is volunteer yourself. What we call to action.
Might find somebody that did your newsletter.
Yeah.
For that.
Right.
You could have did that in, that we sent to the, what,
out to everyone. Saying, you know.
So one of the things, I look at a newsletter.
We can show people. Whatever it is we do,
The farmer's market or whatever.
Farmer's market,
Having,
the lady,
smiling.
what?
Always smiling.
If they're attention.
You're absolutely right, I mean, folks probably aren't gonna respond to we need volunteers, because they don't know. To say yes, what if I show up and this is fun? So, when we do, you have to be very specific. What are we asking you to do?
Farmer's market food.
You know, like, happened, and we wanna. Well, I might push it a little bit, but I mean, just to show people what's.
Those, or even a cartoon. I had the cartoon.
Everybody sees the, don't see the problem is. As we're talking here, I'm thinking about, like the farmer events. One of the things I noticed that the progressives are all younger people. And like the average age is, we evidently have
So they are completely, you know, we're doing.
we find that many, you know, they went to the university and they learned about farming methods. Or make a comment. And really, when you think about, when our intent was to put together a board of 9 individuals. We have 5 right now. And so we have these 4 open slots, and was to bring in, some people. Also, local. Kind of like we ideas on paper, got real busy working on a couple. And flesh out that board.
Yeah, of different perspectives.
I don't think we, 7 directors.
That's a good way to catch. Unfortunately, people think, I think, really important.
We're thinking about including
Yeah.
possible if there's, I don't think anybody able to meet, I feel.
What was kind of interesting is, when I was talking to Scott Provost this morning about, he told me about a meeting, and I was at the meeting, and they talked about us, talked about our 14-mile group, and Jeremy Pavelski was one of them talking. Well, if you know who he is, his family started Heartland Farms, and I think they've 1,000 acres now. And Jeremy's a very influential guy, relatively young. And, I would love to see him on, and I'm sure he's, but, if it, for a lot of his time, and logical, not in our watershed, but he has got
Well,
tremendous.
He farms
Oh,
in
he
the
is?
watershed,
I was just
that's
saying,
not
oh,
Oh, I thought
watershed.
you told me he wasn't in the
So,
watershed.
No, he is in the
Oh,
watershed,
All right, better yet.
That might blossom following.
Anyhow, the point is that, you know, we need seriously fleshing out more input. You know, it's a small group of us, you know, it's like when they I think it's what's that?
Can you ask these young ladies if they'll be part of your board?
Really? Really?
I don't know if that really works that way.
Yeah.
It technically is kind of a conflict of interest for us,
Is it,
because
okay, I thought.
we're,
Too bad though, because you're
we're
both
always
phenomenal.
here as, you know,
Advisors.
as
You guys are our advisors.
Yeah,
you're
Just
and
like
always
Provost
advisors.
is, and
Suggestion though, Al.
you're youthful, yeah.
Right where they are.
So we've got our two goals so far, so bring in young business. And so that's something that kind of touches a little bit on membership, but also a little bit of growth, and also kind of flows into that second goal of broadening perspective. Right?
Yeah.
So we do have one action item for that second one, flush out the board needs. Saying, okay, we're really gonna start looking for this type of person. So just having that in your head, I think is very helpful when we have events like State of Our Lakes, or you decide to go to the Cover Crop Conference, and then you start having those conversations. And be like, oh, maybe, you know, maybe that could be a fit. But it's good to have that in the back of your head.
What, how do we get up to you?
Yeah, I can start with you. First and foremost, a mission that I can get behind, that I can wholeheartedly. Second, can it work with my schedule? You know, if I can never be there, I don't feel like I can contribute, so I would rather give that space to someone who can, making it flexible. You guys do a very good job of like posting. For sure. Sometimes, but really, I mean, you're asking a little bit more than, you know, contributing, you know, or donator. You know, you're asking for people's time, commitment, and, you know, a little bit of their heart, right? You know, because this is something you all put your hearts into. So for that, in my opinion, humbly, I think it really takes someone finds a connection with one of you and feels that, you know, that same love for the resource. That's what's gonna make them want to.
That initial contact. After social media, reaching out to followers or whoever you are, one-on-one contact after that, that's.
We really
can't.
Yeah.
That's probably not gonna work.
You gotta be careful what you ask for.
Yeah.
You just never know there.
Or advertise that online, that you're gonna, maybe a picture of what your guys' board members. And then the people who really hear your mission after and talk to you, and that.
And it could come at an event like.
Right.
Something with the business.
We also have to consider our meeting time, if we're gonna, for younger people that are, actually have,
That's a good point, yeah.
so not 2 o'clock's not gonna work for
No.
most all of them.
No.
Right, 4 or 5,
Or probably after dinner.
probably. I would say 6 or 7.
Yeah.
With our
Try to
producers,
attract a
we're
bigger
meeting at
audience.
6:30. The meetings, we're meeting at.
Yeah, I think that's a
Y'all
good
just have
doable
dinner
time.
together.
They're all busy
Yeah.
during the day.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right, we would expect that, yeah, they have kids, they have. No, I know,
This
that.
is a
I
committee
get that, I get
meeting.
that.
Don't know, committee meeting.
Well, it could be, yeah.
You want
I
people
just
that
wanna make
attend
the
to be board
distinction
members.
that this is not an actual, the committee meeting.
But still, that you need to have it when younger
Agreed.
people are available.
I agree, if we're trying to capture that group. Not trying to capture anybody.
Right. Well, they could be on weekends too. Capture
Right.
that audience.
I don't know that I don't think we're trying to get
Again,
younger.
we're talking committee meeting,
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah, completely.
the committee meeting brought up is, you know, our convenience, but maybe not of the people who really want to. We'll all be here, right, the half dozen, will always show up, will always show up.
When
But
it is.
teaching that to,
Well, Packers win Friday morning.
Yeah, we've had the same discussions you all have right now.
you know.
Okay.
Exactly the same thing.
I think I was at one of your meetings when you.
And
Yeah.
the same thing, we wanna get
Yeah.
younger people, but it's gotta be on a night, it's gotta be on a weekend. Everybody who shows up's all retired, so we're doing the parallel lines
Been there,
here.
done that.
Yeah.
So Scott, what did you, when you guys went through this, you were a step ahead of us. When you went through it, how did you then decide on Fridays?
So long ago, I can't remember.
Oh, okay, all right, it's not something that was recent.
But one of the county towns was like, you know, can't you have it like at 3 o'clock on a Friday afternoon? So I could, you know, get my hours in, and then I could come, and then we could socialize afters, I mean, we've talked about all those sort of things, but again, the whole thing. And as Jerry pointed out, you know, you want a 40-year-old, they got lives, they're working, they got kids, yeah, it's.
I have an idea.
Okay.
We'll give them babysitting.
Yeah, there you go.
All for babysitting? That's a good idea. So,
I'll babysit.
yeah. So I know we're putting the goals down as something we have.
No, we can touch on that later on. Right now, we're gonna just focus on those
Because
big
otherwise
ones.
we'll be meeting till.
So, I do wanna add one more goal that kind of, throws effort inward. So, something that we put together that kind of touches, is already an extremely, but there's always ways to improve, right? So what would be something that folks would wanna do that helps us all remind each other of those comments?
But, read, just to
Right.
hash out
Right,
scientific problems in
Right.
business. Or after a meeting, or,
Right.
or once.
Brian Tucker, I mean,
Yes.
your meeting.
Oh.
I mean, that's the way to do it.
After COVID too, I think everybody's kind of craving that social
Absolutely.
Oh, totally.
And hey, we could maybe work out a deal with a local watering hole and say, you know, if, you know, if you buy this, then how much money goes to the 14 mile.
Good idea.
Yeah.
I feel, you know, sometimes I get socially, you know, going, so enjoyable. Fun with all of you and kind of, because when we meet, we're talking about problems or issues, and, you know, nice just to sit down over a beer and talk about something else,
Yeah.
right?
Barb, what
It is a
plants are you
bonding
planting now?
experience, because it reminds you of what you like about working. It's gotta be fun sometimes.
It involves the spouses too.
I agree.
No.
I agree.
Absolutely. And kids,
Exactly.
yeah.
And that's a good way to target a younger audience as
Yeah.
well, 'cause then I would not. And just, if we're in a social aspect. No.
Al, I don't think we asked for your comment.
It's coming whether you want it or not.
No, those are really good points. You know, we could, you know, put up a pony of beer or.
Right.
Get together there,
Yeah.
if you do it during the summer, where you could use the pavilions
Yeah.
inside.
The Camelot Lodge Pavilion. Set up
Got
a quarter
Yeah.
barrel.
Something to bring the
And-
people in, you know,
And
it
Arrowhead's
does.
got one too. So it would be off,
Really informal, yeah.
that'd be fun.
You don't
I'm all
have, even
for it.
if serious stuff comes up in conversation's fine, but it's certainly there for that.
I like that whole
See how it
idea.
works if it doesn't work.
Yeah.
That'd be
Everything
horrible
over
if
it.
it didn't work. I'd be really upset if it didn't work.
All right, okay, so that's pretty good, I like these three. Let's move on to relationship building. So this is moving towards, kinda, again, moving upstream and starting to make relationships with, like, producers and other watershed organizations, like, you know, the Wetlands Group and others. For this one, our three goals that we've got is get upstream. So one of the questions that I used to prompt was, what audiences does this include? And we know farmers are on that list, but is there anyone that we are missing? or are we not actively reaching out? We're definitely, you guys are definitely actively reaching out to evident. We now have a tour that we're going to have with Heartland. Definitely, we're reaching out to, Fishers and Islands Association. So, Cranberry growers, yes, absolutely. Yeah, is there anyone else that's kind of there in the sphere that we really haven't made an ask of?
Well, one that comes to mind, our watershed really
utilized, but I know that the Yola, it's
unlimited.
reproduced.
There are a number of, waterfall groups.
Well, Adam, who's the guy very involved with
They open up doors for fun.
Up to the users.
what about this?
Kolinsky.
Kolinsky,
Yeah.
Not anymore, I don't know why, but he gave us a lot of information about the water lily project on, I don't know what happened, I don't know.
I would say that he was involved because at the time we were working with Lake Camelot, because they wanted to do during the course of that project, case some and people like that were having meetings and talking about that. It all started with and so it eventually during that activity, I think, actively.
Jennifer Bergman, kind of with DNR was kind of led that up. Kind of got sidetracked with a year since we could.
That's
We need to.
the key.
Oh, they're, fish, I think they call themselves as part of the Lake Camelot. Yes, yeah. And Dan Goldman, they've, I don't go to many of the meetings. Carl goes to those, all of us in the meeting. With what we're doing, haven't always been, we're not really a threat. All long term we're after. The fact that he doesn't really attend the off doing. But as a matter of fact, we'll be at the, we're gonna, like we at Sherwood, so welcomed us. They
Doesn't mean that you have to come in your 14 miles. So, as a citizen. Part of your world. A prime example would be our field days. Farmers. Times I've heard farmers say when, like, someone from Packard would show up to, like, a farmer's 30 minutes just to see what's going on, you know, that just makes their heart sore. They think that is so neat. Not really in the agricultural world, takes the time to drive out to their farm and see what's going on. They don't really expect it. Usually it's just a handful of farmers that they call up and say, hey, get over here for the field day, you know. So that's definitely something that I would highly suggest.
So
Are on
to
the
know,
Are on the list.
Well, that would be an action item, is look at file, you know, their social media platforms, calendars, and try to create a common calendar of area events in ag.
What we need is, we need more people from our board and from our. We have attended Epic. We worked with, Aaron, and, in the early days, it was finding more than. Should be one of those. So it's not just one or two. After a while, you just run out of, but the more people have involved in our committee, who will attend those things, we learned a lot, and Dave, it was really a learning. Also, very encouraging to know that they are as progressive as we are. Water, so we just need to act on it. We need more.
When you're going to those advertising that you,
On Facebook, you know, we're doing, in the past, we have done, you know, our visits. We've, there are too few of us. And, it helps build, have a relationship with. I think we're well thought of, but there's just
Are you thinking of something else?
no, I just know, like with Packers, when they go to, guys, Packers, and produce
Stuff like that, you know.
You're setting up for the Heartland tour, right?
Yep. But, I mean, bring your camera.
Show that you're out there.
yeah, bring your phone to the
Yeah.
camera.
Before we go on the Heartland tour, we need to pass to the other software from DeKalb. That will really fit in. I did learn that as a field days.
Oh, really?
So funny. Here, one thing to say before that too is, well, on their website, they have an awesome website, read through it, because then you prepare yourself with questions. I mean, to get involved with them and to interact with them, you don't want to go in there just to hear them talk at you. You want a conversation with them. Go into their backstory of how they were made, maybe just love when you ask questions. I mean, it's their heritage. It's what they do. It's their livelihood. Our manager just love it. So, and then those questions Don and I have been in communication. And plan on being.
Are you willing to?
Yes, oh yeah, and I spoke with.
How does it help us? It's a different type of patient because they, their own mistrusting of. And a relationship that you have the trust.
So, you know, big farmers, a lot of the time, cost criteria come from those folks. So, you know, if you could, then that could be a.
Or in Nichols, form the epic. So we met her editor to come down and she was great. Or she was quitting marathon. Kind of a survey. And there are 15 categories of, so we probably, you know,
Just above lawyers and politicians.
yeah. But it was interesting who they trust. Like the first group would be their relatives who are also farmers, and it would go down the row, and it was egg agents, and so it was a kind of a decline. But really, I think it. And one of the things that I would say, that I would share with you, because I've had, like Thomas Houlihan, the whole, you know, watershed, looking for people. One of the things we've done real hard not to point, if you will, it's been kind of really fault finding, but it's like let's see. So I think that's good because you got Jeremy. That's encouraging. We got to waste opportunities there.
And it's just the fact that we're now gaining this relationship with Harlan. I mean, they're massive, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, they have huge leeway in a lot of surrounding farms. So, I mean, the more conversations that they have with folks, the more the good word will be spread, the more that your name will become more trusted. So, I mean, I really see this visit to Heartland as a good.
I agree with what Rachel said, and as well as Heartland is huge, they are huge. I mean, that are eighth of the size. They might not even have internet. after Heartland, they do have.
And then we'll get to the last. So for relationship building, so what I'm seeing here is that we want to reach out to these wildlife groups, right? So a goal, do we want to actually try to attend
Wildlife and fish. I thought there was a. Yeah, okay.
I would do that on time.
Land and water.
What?
Okay, land and water.
So don't we first have to,
And that should be all made, public through, if you're on and look up your local.
Calendar. Reach out. For.
I'm sorry, but I'm just,
Oh, so I'm just saying, so after we would develop a list of like who are these groups, you know, who are the people who kind of. Also, one-on-one conversation. Do we want to just, you know, go to those public meetings and see them and kind of see what happens? Or do we want to do this as in schools, a couple, go, you know?
could I throw out a suggestion? There are a lot of things that are such a small group that, it is very difficult to have us out there for farm days quite I think that was a good start, but then we got busy. Maybe this is one of those into get a that we communicate. Hey, want to make some inroads, kind of group. Who among you have an interest in that? You're a member currently, or you? That helps us to maybe get a person or somebody said you need to have a
Membership too.
Do you want,
Bottom
oh, yeah, you know, we're separate.
yeah, and right, because membership's that big base of the pyramid, right? So it is the number one thing. And I don't mean to push, like, you know, the very next wildlife meeting, we all have to go to it, you know? This could be something that we get to next year. Right now, you know, the timeline of these goals can be 5 years, we can push.
contacts for some of those right to the meetings. Invite them here.
Adam, who's part of, is it Trout Unlimited, so. So, got that connection, and we should partner with them.
But if we put out
That was
an
organic.
appeal to, on our list, for people
Just say, we'd like to get to know you. Yeah. We'd like to get to
We do, we haven't really touched on that yet, yeah. That's, again, that's a big animal.
That we've been tackling,
Yes, yes, and,
you know, track that one.
Well, don't, that,
go ahead.
I just think it, so this new, the, job description for take the reins on that, cause I'm kind of dealing with my own, yeah, it's in the process.
Back to one other thing, not again, because developed initially, brought to the point, Lakes is to form this organization and then invested contact, another time to, I do it politically, but a way out that somebody's going to volunteer to, and so,
I think we should make that welcoming and open,
directly ask.
yeah, directly ask them, you know. Yeah, we do vote on June first.
Well, with that, on the events piece, I think obviously, this group has a very robust list of excellent programs that you're already conducting. The bullets that we do have here, that we've listed, is make the invisible more visible. Meaning to that was to highlight water quality in events. Don't let a crisis go ignore water quality this year. That one really, how that one spoke to me was helping our audience, the audiences that you sort of understand what is going on with the water. You know, why is it, well, it's, a lot of times it's not because of the pollution that exacerbates it, but a lot of times there are climatic reasons for the variations in the lake. Being very transparent about that, you know, as your audience, I think shows a very nice image of your gauging a baseline. I talked about that a little bit, of trying to understand our audience, kind of the demographic piece. So, you know, what do people know, what do they don't know? Gauging people over long distances. So, expanding options, like we've talked about with Instagram, for example. And then we did put the 9 key plan implementation, looking at those objectives and seeing where we can fill. And I will say, I have it up on my computer too, if we the milestones for the 9 key. Is already touching on a lot of those. I mean, especially when it comes to outreach aspects, relationship building with other organizations, water quality collection. You guys really are moving and shaking really well, I think. But in terms of programs, you know, I just heard Karen say, you know, we have pontoon events. You know, is there something that, it doesn't have to be that, but is there something that you would want to do that's maybe a little more social? You know, that could kind of start, that still highlights water quality, bringing in folks, volunteer, but also have fun at the same time. So this is social, but it kind of opens the door for both. I love, like the mix. You know, what are some things we can do to or make it a little more available? You know, can we local schools or, you know, youth clubs or things like that, try to bring in folks that way.
Sure, and just make
Learning that we're at, on board with it.
Science teacher.
Yeah.
He's
I mean,
wonderful
all
guy,
the
yeah.
people in the group are young, they're exactly the opposite of us. No, we're enthusiastic, I didn't mean that, we are enthusiastic, we're not young. So their ideas are very different. You know, I'm really amazed, because
So even a goal could be, even though it's already in place, would be a relationship with
It's easy to forget. Adams is not very far either, so
Right.
they have.
because they're part of the watershed.
to start that relationship. Did you out as a high school?
No, it was, yeah, Gus Mancuso. It all kind of fell together.
So, think of Mr. Kusa, we have Adams on the list.
That would be a good insight.
Might be a lot of farm kids.
So, you know, we've all heard of the Farmers and Milk programs that they did was Area Pollinators program. So, the farmers are now more a part of it, but it really started with the partners. So it was Dan O'Connell and Tracy Arnold. They brought me in to help. And basically what we do is you go into schools and you give about an hour-long program. Science, ag courses. And then you also profess the good name of the group, the Farmers and Watershed Council. And that has progressed now. We have student groups. I think we've been 3 or 4 field trips now this summer. So they come up to the farm and we get folks from Extension and like. So that might be something to think about, you know, if maybe or go to the school or have a place that, it doesn't necessarily have to be a school, it could be Rose Club, 4-H, yeah, I mean, there's lots of different youth groups. But youth education really is a good way to go, because, you send stuff home with kids, they tell mom and dad about their great experience, I mean, that's how 4-H got going, right? Is because kids were bringing those good experiences home with their families. they use.
Can I help at these meetings?
We have it.
You do.
We have it.
We use that at the farmer's
Yeah.
market. I think it's,
I mean, but it helps other people.
So, leaning towards, making things more youth and family. And right, it's hard for, you know, moms and dads to come away from their kids. Yeah. And you gotta wrangle them somehow, so if they can bring them with to something and still learn about water quality and still learn about the 14 mile, that could be your ticket. So,
We really don't have anything that group.
no.
All we do is, you know,
How do we make it kid friendly? People have, a kayak or a canoe. You could do like a float trip. Work with a local place like, or, you know, a cheaper. Like, or Eric mentioned a 5K. It takes some volunteers, but usually float would probably be the easiest. I mean, heck, you could even do just, you know, like a public event and have bring in Adams County Extension, great stuff.
Yeah, we've had 4 programs so far, yeah.
yeah. Those are great.
Evan Hensel.
It just exhibit at these August 7th.
When is it?
August 7th.
It's a Saturday at night.
Okay. Yeah. We'll see.
Yeah, because Adams County Lake Alliance will be there. The 4-H thing, I think that.
I'll talk to Evan and see what we can do. I know
Oh, on that, kids, I know.
We need
Yep.
another meeting before.
All
Yes, it's
right.
hard to get
All
it.
right,
All
we'll
right,
wrap it up.
this is great, but
We'll wrap up goal number 2 as, family friendly event, right, something. And that, we can be done for today. I would suggest maybe in like the next week or 2, we can have a Zoom,
great.
and then we can just kind of button up
That sounds good.
our goals and action items.
That sounds-
Yeah, let it take in a little bit, and I'll send all this out to everybody. Again,
Thanks so much,
Thank
Blake.
you.
Thank you for bringing order.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
Yeah.
Lots to talk about.
Okay, so, we have, following this meeting, we're gonna do, State of the Lakes, where are we with it? And then at 5 o'clock, some of us are in that, the Carson Rec meeting. We're talking about, just so you know, we're talking about, the Legacy Foundation, and there's some launching area, where it starts at 9th Ave. I'll be there talking about the possibility of maybe making. So, And I know I did this, last meeting too, but, points in each one of the, of anybody of Sure, 14 Mile Alliance, I mean, that's all we've been talking about here, so I'll bypass talking the rest of that, but, Anna, did you have any update, with the 9 plan, have you?
Yeah, so the only update that I have right now is that Jason has been working on the job description. When it'll be posted.
Oh, has the job not been posted yet?
That would be the only update.
Very quickly, the Legacy Foundation update, Bob Benkowski brought us into that through his people on that board. And so we had a meeting set up for this Wednesday. Rob had to back out of it, so we're meeting next week with, one of the key, board members from the, so these discussions are really talking about tonight. Project together. We can go into standing committee.
I'm not gonna go into too. As far as the YouTube. I'm posting. So I'm posting as we go. We're gonna talk about all. The school is. I might have to have Phil.
Watershed, Phil?
Yes, we completed the stream test. 21st. Well, we'll have to talk about it. So Dave and Kane, going to see if we can involve some others who have vastly on testing, testing on.
Also, equally, on Arrowhead.
Oh.
That us, or was that somebody?
I sampled the rest of. For Arrowhead, it has. I went and did another.
We're gonna cover Sherwood. We're, just to clarify what our role is, when that report came out, was it last?
Friday is, I think,
Yeah.
when we got the results.
Well, it kinda got thrown into our lap, but really, our role in this is to of the water testing, we volunteer. Not really the reporting. So, that's, you may have seen a Facebook post or something lakes and reported that it was a higher level, but not. That's the right reporting authority. I know. Our role is really. Anything more?
That's all I had on
Okay.
this.
Environmental quality grant development, Dave.
John mentioned we're kind of moving forward, trying to put together a package for legacy, the kind of thing we're putting our heads together. $15,000. Look at the legacy grant foundations, grants that they've awarded, $250,000, $500,000. And gonna be a lot involved in that. Healthy Lakes, a little disappointed after, mailing that went out from Tri-Lakes that, however many landowners there are and mailed out 3,500, Healthy Lakes brochures. I've got some contacts as a result of that mailing so far. I was expecting to be shout out to Karen, because I finally got an email from someone the other day, though, that's up at the booth at the farmer's market. I want to talk to you, so that was it. So that's right. Can you just give us a person about you signs?
We have a lot of pledges.
It was very interesting at the booth that there were talk about fertilizer, a number of people as at all. A number of them that just
I think I mentioned that the Catalyst Fund, the every day that we got our 501. Got it this morning. $1,000 over. A fourth of it would go for image if you. So it is on that Wisconsin watershed wetlands. So all good. I'm keeping my finger. Finance, Barb.
I have, nothing other than,
Our last meeting, June. And expenditure. Balance is 3,408. Other thing to, our alliance is Mile. Button on the website, down by the Facebook, that you can click on and it will. And I know anyone else who wants to.
Those who may be listening at home, are not for our consumption. Actually, Wisconsin Potato Vegetable Growers agreed to donate 2 cases for our State of the Lakes. And anything beyond that, we
Speaking of that, can I, our Save the Lakes go $1,000? And Jerry helped us get some, for the food, so we can thank Jerry for getting all of the money. It's a huge thing.
Bill for the, during the lunch, is gonna
He's the one who got Chatterbox.
well done, sir. There will be 1,000 coming from.
That's great for a number of reasons. One is, partnership development, talked a bit about that. Talk about, lake reports on enough to close.
Read on,
I saw that, yeah.
talked about a pontoon. I went to the lodge and
I can only imagine one living across the lodge, I can tell you about one.
but, you know, that's just something to think.
And Carson, if you have any,
That's right, yeah.
that's,
Yeah, it was for a benefit for the Alex stuff.
Yep.
Any town, county?
Not really.
Yeah.
they're very nice.
Right. So, the next date, if we follow our, the date of the yeah, well, it'll be.
So I guess
to
we'll
do
get download.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
before we forget. I mean,
Yeah.
perfect, yeah.
The perfect time to say, okay, what do we do? In place, are we good? In terms of a speaker, I've had a couple of thoughts, but, let me just. Any other topics that you would, other than we can do a
The main driver of our
Yeah.
meeting.
Debrief on,
Yeah.
At one point in time, I think we else went down and talked to, Dam about their, always talked about, we were gonna try to get involved more, because they were times this fall, might.
Let's go.
Another really good group would be Lake Redstone. The similarity there is, we're also developed by, their issues are different. Whereas with Sam, but, they have, or have one of them come. Their county conservation was the, maybe they have him here, just talking about their experience. Right, so, I'll think about that and send you out an email. All right. Thank you all.
I don't like you trying to get in here. It's on my schedule already, I know that for sure. Gary, I went to
I was looking at it last time, I don't
Okay, we're gonna